Money Talk.
This is Akashvani. In the program Money Talk, now we bring you exclusive interview with Niti Aayog member Dr. Arvind Virmani on Niti Aayog's twin reports on India's service sector. Interviewer is Sonu Sood.
Niti Aayog released two crucial reports relating to the Indian services sector today, titled Insights from GVA Trends and State-Level Dynamics and Insights from Employment Trends and State-Level Dynamics. To understand the importance of these reports for the all-important services sector of Indian economy, we have the privilege of speaking with Dr. Arvind Virmani, member Niti Aayog. Dr. Virmani, warm welcome to you from Akashvani.
Thank you.
Dr. Virmani, we'd like to know from you these two new Niti Aayog reports which have been released today simultaneously relating to the gross value added trends and employment trends in the Indian services sector. Can you tell us what is the thought behind these reports and what do they aim to achieve?
So basically, for the first time probably, perhaps in history of India, we have set up a services division to look exclusively at the service sector. As you know, more than half the economy, GDP, come from the service sector, and a large part of the employment is also in the service sector. So the way the system has evolved is there are ministries for manufacturing, agriculture, and some specific services, but there is no really body which has a full-time job. There is, of course, international trade in services, but internal services. So the idea is to focus on services per se. And as part of this, we have geared up at NITI to write a series of reports going deeply into this sector. Of course, people have all kinds of impressions, general ideas, etc. But I think this is the first time we are systematically studying the internal service sector. And these two reports are the kind of first two reports on this sector.
So what are the key findings that have emerged from these reports, and how much is the services sector contributing to our country's economy?
Yeah, so as I said, 50% of gross value, which is up from about less than half, 49% in 2011-12, and it has roughly 188 million workers, which is 30% of total employment. So to give you an idea of the two reports, the first report focused on the product size, the GVA, the gross value added, what we think of as GDP. The GDP contribution looked at the various sectors which are available in the national account statistics. And the second report goes more deeply into the employment aspects of it, sometimes corresponding to the same sectors, sometimes because the first one is based on national accounts, second one is based more on the FLS, the labor system. Broadly, so we have looked at sectors and subsectors. For example, to give you one example, we generally think of kind of the modern sector of the service economy and the traditional sectors. So we looked at the employment in different sectors, looked at productivity in different subsectors of the service sector. So it's firstly to get all the information in one place and then start looking at some of the general issues which connect all these. So just to give you one example, it turns out that computer and information services, which we generally think of as small, isolated sort of high-end, they take place in Bangalore or somewhere, have one of the highest output elasticities among all the subsectors. So there are many such details in the studies.
In fact, both the reports, if we see the titles, they say state-wise analysis. That seems to be a key aspect of these reports.
Right, quite right. You remind me, that was the second point I wanted to make, that the second element of it is to actually go down into the states and do the same analysis to the extent possible, to the extent that data is available, and look at each state and see the contribution of the service sector, and again, where they are stronger, weaker, etc. One can't go into all the examples, but really any state can, if they are looking for their strengths, weaknesses, etc., where there's opportunity, that also these two reports give.
And what kind of policy inputs will these reports give in terms of, as you said, that state-wise analysis is being done and there are 15 subsectors which have been identified in the entire services ecosystem. So will these give a lot of policy indicators?
Yeah, so one is, as I said, the common policy suggestions. For example, at the end there is a section on unlocking, leveraging technology and global mega trends. The idea here is more the national level. The state level is just to give the data, because each state will have some variants of these. So these are the broader problems which are all over the state. For example, apprenticeship schemes which we have started. So how that can be used. For example, apprenticeship in logistics one can think of. The earlier focus of apprenticeship perhaps was a little more on manufacturing and infrastructure. So moving that more into services like logistics, the kind of incubation, the how to connect with the NEP. Again, there is generally a feeling that when we think of education, skills and employability, there's a tendency to think of the manufacturing sector or infrastructure. So the idea is to do the same thing for services. And of course, services, we have to remember, are so large compared to manufacturing, which will be like order of 20% or less. But this is like 50%. So the subsectors are very important. So in some cases, but the general problems again are similar. So under the NEP, there is, from schooling to colleges, there's a recognized need to connect with the job skills, right? So similar things will have to be done in services. So skilling is a very important part. We don't think of that. But for example, even in construction, where we think generally public will think like a construction site, somebody is hauling bricks or something. No, construction sector is moving ahead. Yeah. There are different quality gradations. You need to upgrade those skills. Even internationally, there's a huge demand for construction workers. What kind? Plumbers, electricians, and so on, right? So each getting into these individual sectors will give us more knowledge and more information to everybody, including government, public, etc., to increase the focus and think of it as job generating sectors rather than something where people are just there.
So you feel that with increasing digitization, with increasing technological advancements, there's a lot more synergy between the three pillars of Indian economy, that is services, agriculture and manufacturing. Services is becoming more and more of a support system for the other two pillars?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at AI and expert systems, what I call, which we tend to neglect, which was the earlier stage of AI actually, which we have not, I think there's a lot more use which can be done. But one is to think of it as a service sector from the supply side, but the other is to think of it from the demand side, that we can use AI and these expert systems to improve the quality of health provision, to improve the quality of training of health professionals, to improve the quality of education, of educating the teachers, of learning. There are all kinds of possibilities, even improving the government services, the government systems. So that side of it really, from my personal perspective, I think is kind of needs a lot more attention than just thinking of AI, how it may or may not replace labor, which of course people are thinking about, but how to use it to improve skilling, education, productivity, I think is relatively neglected, and we need to put more emphasis on that.
And which specific subsets of the service sector, like for example tourism, health, IT, which you feel are being called India's biggest service growth engines according to the analysis?
Yeah, so tourism, for example, Honorable Prime Minister has said many times, I think he's been saying it for almost a decade. I'll come back to it, it's very important, but let me go back to that categorization which I said, modern services. So what we identified or these reports have identified is computer and information services, health, financial sector and professional services. These are kind of the high-end services, so to say, which have the highest employment elasticity with respect to output. So clearly these are important. Just to again give you an example which we may not think of, when we think of health services, we only think of hospitals and doctors. But there's whole multiple levels of technicians. There are multiple levels of paraprofessionals. So we must think not only of the top of the pyramid, but the middle, which are these technicians, because the bulk of our people are going to be employed there. And there are also low-end skills where support services to the health system and so on. So there's a whole pyramid of levels in each of these, not each of these, but health, for example. So that is one thing. The other is, as I mentioned, tourism, for example. There the problem is slightly different because tourism requires a whole bunch of things coming together. So what? Hotels, restaurants, attractions, natural attractions, monuments, whatever, entertainment. So they have to, and security. So they have to function together to get success. So there is what we economists call a kind of coordination problem. If you just do one thing, it will not work. You have to bring them all together. So it's a difficult challenge. It's a challenge which PM has asked us to address. Hopefully we'll make progress. But tourism is clearly a very important sector, which again, the point is it's not just the top of the pyramid, it's all levels of employment, tour guides, etc. So tourism can generate not only large employment, but employment at all different levels. So inclusiveness is a very important contribution actually of the service sector, potentially.
Yeah. So if we talk about regional disparities, when there is this kind of detailed state level, state-wise analysis, what kind of possibilities emerge about reducing regional disparities? And do you think that there have been certain states which have been overachievers and which certain states which still have potential, which will emerge from these
Right. So the studies do show that ratio, what I called, I said the high-end A services, B traditional services like transport, travel, trade and repair and so on. So the ratio of these services is different. So in the kind of better off or higher income states, the modern services are more prominent. In the kind of less well-off states, the traditional ones. But the study suggests that these gaps are beginning to close. But the question is, how can we do that at a faster rate? And it comes back again to the quality of learning, teaching and learning. That is the foundation, that is the base. And on top of that, the job skilling is very important. You have to skill people. Even though repair and maintenance is a very traditional service, but teaching the skills of repairing, whether it's an electrical outlet or anything, can generate lots of jobs for the middle level again. That's the key, because you have so many people at the bottom of the pyramid. To raise them to the next level is really critical. So think of it as a pyramid. So in that sense, the states which have lower per capita income really should think of moving up this pyramid. The last stage, really those states which are already in the middle have to think of the higher stage. Not that other states cannot have IT, that will happen. But as far as government's push is concerned, the skills which you need for these is the key. The rest of it will kind of happen in the economy. But the generation of skills is kind of government, NGOs have a very important role.
And as an addendum, ease of doing business has been the cornerstone of the current government. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has always been stressing on that.
Right.
So that should also play as a big facilitator.
Right. So absolutely. So those as you will see when our next reports on various professional categories, etc., we go much more deeper into the rules, regulations, standards, etc., which are necessary to promote these higher level, higher quality services.
So just one last question. What does the report say about our potential to export more services to other countries? And
again, there'll be, so the focus here was on domestic services. Okay. We will have a separate report on trading and international trade and services.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vermani, for throwing light on the various nuances of these twin reports which have come out on India's services sector.
Thank you.
You were listening to exclusive interview with Niti Aayog member Dr. Arvind Virmani on Niti Aayog's twin reports on India's service sector. Interviewer was Sonu Sood. This program was produced and presented by the New Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsttalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289094044.
Money Talk,